This week on Tech Trends, National Information Technology Development Agency, NIDA, says the government is committed to actualizing and implementing the national blockchain policy. Also on the program, Anti-Fraud Program sensitizes Nigerians on the need to be cybersecurity conscious. And then I talked to Grace Oluchi, who is a policy advocate as well as the co-founder and executive director at Climate Action Africa. We discussed the implementation and domestication of the Nigerian Startup Act 2022. As always, Tech Trends is here to take you on a ride in 25 minutes to seek out innovation and creativity that are unique to Africa. Welcome to the program. Cyber weapons won't go away, and their spread can't be controlled. Instead, as we've done for other destructive technologies, the world needs to establish a set of principles to determine the proper conduct of governments regarding cyber conflict. The National Blockchain Policy for Nigeria was developed to serve as a roadmap for the country's adoption and utilization of blockchain technology. Hence why the federal government is taking steps to drive home its interests in the field. At a stakeholders policy dialogue in Lagos, the Director General of the National Information Technology Development Agency, NIDA, says the government is committed to the actualization and implementation of the national blockchain policy. I've worked with a cloud computing firm, and I remember many times... A stakeholders dialogue aimed at strengthening Nigeria's digital economy through the implementation of the national blockchain policy.
For the e-Naira, right?
In May 2023, the Federal Executive Council approved the national blockchain policy to serve as a roadmap for Nigeria's adoption and utilization of the technology. And this convergence of regulators, policymakers, and industry players in the sector is to power conversations that will drive sustainable economic growth and development through the adoption of blockchain technology.
Our mission for embarking on this strategic initiative is to encourage the use, adoption, and integration of blockchain in various sectors of Nigerian digital economy in order to increase efficiency, innovation, transparency, security, and trust. The policy identified talent development, innovation, and adoption as the key areas that government will collaborate with stakeholders to harness the potential of blockchain in Nigeria. That's why we have gathered here together to stir up conversation on this policy dialogue to harness your idea, harness your input, harness your contribution to shape the narrative and to ensure that at the point of implementation, none of any sector is left behind. That's why today is a day that has been set aside for a kind of a heart-heated dialogue with creative aggression to put in all views that is required and to enable the implementation of this policy to be a success.
Nigeria has once again taken the lead, being the first country to develop a blockchain policy in Africa. The country's adoption and implementation of the national blockchain policy will not only boost innovation and create job opportunities, but will also help generate revenue.
Blockchain is the only technology that can absorb every single sector in existence in human history, and it's a well-known fact. And this is the fastest growing technological sector of the 21st century. And so, if we position ourselves rightly and take the right steps, we heard the talk about generating $6 billion from blockchain technology. And I can tell you that we can do even much more than that. We want to build businesses that will thrive. We want to build businesses that will contribute to our economy. We want to improve governance. We want to achieve efficiency and effectiveness in every sector that we are in.
As far as the industry players are concerned, this policy dialogue is long overdue.
The most important thing is that the industry has taken the lead, dragged the government. The government is a listening government, came closer, and now we have to sit on the table and make use of this opportunity. We can't do it alone. That's why I said it's an industry and government collaboration. That's the big win. Now we're dragging as well the academia into it because that is the breeding ground of knowledge. We have to use them so that they can start infusing blockchain courses, blockchain curricula into their program.
Every single Nigerian has experienced or lost out on an opportunity because somebody didn't trust them. People don't trust our educational system, people don't trust our documents, people don't trust like the skills that we claim that we have, right? People can't get access to credit. And so the point of this technology is that it does away with those challenges, and it creates access to economic opportunities, and it's very difficult to put a value on that, right? But I do think that if we create the environment, we can see what happened in the fintech space, right? We've seen the rise of Paystack, OPay, MoneyPoint. You know, imagine if, let's say, in 2015, 2016, the government created policies that stifled that innovation. Where would we be in terms of financial inclusion, right? And so I think the government has to make that right decision and figure out how do we enable the entrepreneurs to kind of like solve these problems and bring in that foreign currency to take the country forward.
Blockchain technology has a very vast, profitable solution to it. We can implement blockchain technology in different areas in the society, the financial sector, the health sector, educational sector, as well as the financial sectors like we are seeing with the crypto exchanges and the peer-to-peer payments and transactions. So I believe with blockchain technology, there's a whole lot of immersed solutions that we can provide to the current problems that we have in the country.
With the huge potential the industry is capable of generating, the federal government appears set to have a piece of the pie.
We are here to engage the stakeholders, to work together with the stakeholders and implement it so that Nigeria and Nigerians can capture value from this blockchain. According to PwC, by 2030, blockchain will add 1.76 trillion US dollars to the global GDP. And Nigeria, if we position ourselves well, we can get about 40 billion US dollars by 2030 from blockchain.
As discussions to integrate blockchain technology into various sectors of the economy gets louder, the federal government seems determined to collaborate with stakeholders in the space in order to position Nigeria as the leading digital economy in Africa. The cost of cybercrime is predicted to hit $8 trillion this year and will grow to $10.5 trillion by 2025. That's according to a cybercrime report by Cybersecurity Ventures. So in a bid to drastically reduce cybercrime and fraud losses in the country, a committee of Chief Information Security Officers of Nigerian financial industry and the Bankers Committee educate the public through a Cybersecurity Awareness program. In 2020, the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation released its annual Internet Crime Report, which ranked Nigeria 16th in the list of countries worst affected by Internet crimes. And since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, cyber attacks have increased by 600%, with Cybersecurity Ventures projecting that cybercrime will cost the world economy $10.5 trillion by 2025. Hence why the industry is moving quickly to counter the attacks.
They moved over 5 billion naira that they stole.
In Lagos, the Committee of Chief Information Security Officers of Nigerian financial industry, the Bankers Committee and CyberSafe Foundation are coming together to sensitize the public on the need to be cybersecurity conscious.
This industry program is aimed at promoting general public awareness and cybersecurity, which ultimately will dovetail to reducing cybercrime and financial fraud. The financial industry has witnessed an increased adoption of digital technology platform in response to the CBN financial inclusion and of course to COVID-19 pandemic crisis, which in no thanks led digital innovation globally. This increased innovation and use of digital platform has greatly transformed the cyber and technology landscape, thereby giving rise to new risks, especially with sustaining trust and confidence in the customer's ability to communicate and transact securely within the financial ecosystem. Hence, there is need to constantly address related challenges of ensuring continuous cyber security and data privacy.
The anti-fraud program puts the responsibility of the individual to be the guard against cyber attacks.
In reality, when we talk about cybersecurity, most of the time we know it's about technology, it's about process, and then of course it's about the people. And I usually say that there is no amount of investment that you put in the people side that can ever go wrong. And it's a continuous spending. It's about increasing the cybersecurity intelligent quotient of the populace, which is very important. It's about building the human firewall. Yes, we spend so much money building the technology. Yes, we have standardized all our processes. But most of the time, we find out that the human element, both, even on the, especially from the customer side, there is a need to build that human firewall.
Cybercrime is a big threat to every company in the world and one of the biggest problems with mankind. But as cybercriminals become increasingly sophisticated with their methods, organizations need to invest in advanced security measures to stay protected against risks. From Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to Blade Runner, the concept of flying cars has long been a mainstay in people's imagination of the future. Now, that future may become a reality after California-based company Aleph Aeronautics was given a limited certification by the United States Federal Aviation Administration to test fly its own flying car known as Model A.
Even before Henry Ford, people tried to do the flying cars, right? And they received some kind of certification. Here is a traditional car, which looks like a car, drives like a car, parks like a car, was allowed a takeoff, a vertical takeoff. So first time something which is a traditional car, and on top of that an electric car, was allowed by US government through FAA, a vertical takeoff, for the limited purposes. But that means that flying cars in the traditional sense are now recognized, at least by one government.
Because of legal issues, the company has only been able to show images of the Model A as well as mock-up videos. Now, with a limited certification, the company can finally show the world a flying car.
We're actually planning a public media demo pretty soon, where would actually display how it works and everything like that. But before we had official certification, the special awards and certification from FAA, we could not do exhibition or videos in the places which we need to present it the way we want it to the public.
But how does it work? Jim said it's all about transitioning between a terrestrial car and a flying one.
So think about the car on the ground. It goes up, and then your passenger side becomes the bottom wing, and the driver's side becomes the top wing, and it turns like this. Now you're reutilizing every inch of your car as the wing. Now you have a very efficient flight.
Although Jim said the vehicle already has the capacity to fly, it would take a long time to see them be used by the masses, especially concerning traffic regulations.
There's going to be places where you're allowed to take off, and the places where you're not going to be allowed to take off. Let's say like a whitelisted areas and a blacklisted areas, which will make sense. I think over time, those areas will shrink, expand or contract, right? But this is, I think, how it's going to work.
Although there have been numerous attempts to make a flying car, Jim believes it was their approach to safety that enabled them receive the limited certification. Aleph Aeronautics says the public could expect the flying car to be purchased by late 2025. It's been almost a year since the Nigerian Startup Act 2022 was passed into law to support the growth of the tech startup ecosystem and harness the potential of our digital economy through co-created regulations. But almost a year down the line, how far have we gone with its implementation? Grace Oluchi, the co-founder and executive director at Climate Action Africa, joins me to discuss this further.
Firstly, I would like to say that the Nigerian Startup Act, in my personal opinion, I think it's a very balanced policy and a very balanced act just because of how it was led. One, it was people-driven and evidence-driven. It was co-created by a whole community that makes up the startup ecosystem. This is hubs, universities, research institutions, and the startups themselves. And just because we were able to, galvanize across the different geopolitical zones and states and had regional consultations that led into the national bill, I think it is really balanced and it's a true reflection of what it means when democracy and governance is at work. And we see that power of the people even in some of the tenets of this act. For example, how the National Council for Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship is formed, the people on the board and the people on the council, and just generally, we see how it really speaks to the pain points of the ecosystem. So we're really happy about that. Thank you.
How much of the initial zeal is still supporting the implementation of the Act?
So again, just because there are different stakeholders, the temperature is different from different sides of the aisle. And also we look at the fact that we just left an election cycle, campaigns and all of that. So from the public sector side, it was a bit, the zeal kind of reduced just because of change of administration. However, speaking again to that balance, the council and the secretariat that is supposed to be pushing the implementation of this bill has private sector and ecosystem people on it. And they have continuously pushed for the implementation regardless of what was happening in the country. And we are hopeful that the zeal is going to continue and is going to grow just because we are seeing a trend of people who were parts of the formation, the formation process of this bill, of this act, and also people who are in the ecosystem coming into the corridors of power. So we're really excited and we know that this deal is going to grow. For example, we have Dr. Bosu Tijani, who is one of the founding members and strong pillars of the ecosystem, who is now federal minister for communications and digital economy. We have Chukwuemeka Fred, who was always also part of the ecosystem in Anambra State. We have Daniel Chinagozi. We have even the commissioner in Ekiti State. People who have been part of the ecosystem for years from the private sector side have now had the opportunity to cross carpet into public sector. So we are really hopeful to see how this will affect the implementation, and it's already driving a lot of excitement in the ecosystem. So we're really zealous about getting this implemented. Yes.
Now, apart from signing the NSA into law, which of course is a step in the right direction, how can we fast track its implementation? Because it seems there's a stall somewhere.
Yes, I would say yes. There's a stall somewhere just because of change of administration, like I had mentioned, and with all things policy, again, and with all things government, there's always a little pulling of the feet and so much bureaucracy that has to happen. But then if we look at the statistics, we see that Statista has said that there are about 3,360 startups in Nigeria. The Innovation Support Network has counted about 500 hubs in their last enumeration, and we have a highly youthful population. And these are the people that the Act was co-created for. And therefore, we know that there's going to be a lot of pressure to push. So despite the fact that there was a stall due to change of administration, we know that that is going to change. And it is really going to come down to implementation and adoption at state level. That's where it's going to come down to. And which is why we feel like to fast track it, there needs to be a reverse of the process, which is, for example, we did everything. We collected regional consultations from states and pushed it up to federal, and we have the law enacted. The same thing has to happen now in reverse, which is people and ecosystem stakeholders within the states have to start organizing again to push to apply that internal pressure to the state houses and to their governors and to their commissioners to ensure that this bill is domesticated. I feel like just because of the nature of the bill, the process of domestication as well has to be different. And I'm really excited about the numbers that we see in the ecosystem. And we know that this pressure is going to, fast track the implementation is going to fast track the implementation at subnational levels, because that's what it really comes down to.
Now, talking about domesticating the act, some states have already indicated interest, and they are also making efforts to do that. For example, Lagos and I think Kaduna State. But is there a framework they're expected to work with?
Oh yes, there is. There is a framework. So I did a little bit of consulting with Anambra State government, and one of the key things that I was personally pushing for was the domestication of this act, and they have indicated interest in domesticating this as well. And the first thing that I would tell any player in the state that wants to domesticate is just reach out to the NSA Secretariat. Reach out especially and ask for Tracy Okoro, because she is the lead for state adoption and domestication, and she has a framework to tell you how the consultations has to happen at state level, the first reviews and second reviews, because once the state starts to domesticate, they have to send their revised versions to the Secretariat, and Tracy will be in charge of it. Go to the website, the information is there, reach out. I know the Secretariat, especially those who are from the ecosystem, are very eager about state domestication, so they are always happy to help, and they have a whole lot of resources to share with us. Thank you.
Right, the Secretariat is, on ground to ensure that all parties involved, all states rather, willing to domesticate the act, they have everything that they need to work with. But let's assume we're able to achieve domestication in most of the states, if not all. Is that going to be enough?
No, it's not. It's not going to be enough. Because like with all things, it's one thing to pass an act, it's another thing to implement it. We've seen this with various different acts. A very good example I think I should share now is the Disability Act, Discriminations Against Persons with Disabilities Prohibition Act of 2018. We are at the end of the 5-year moratorium period that was given to organizations and to governments to ensure that infrastructures in states are accessible and inclusive for persons with disabilities, but we have not seen that happen in the way that we were expecting it to. Until date, we have about 16 states that have not implemented that act. So it's the same thing that should happen here. Domesticating it at state level is not enough. We need the implementation of it. And the act has to be a living, breathing document just because of the sector that it's targeting. Tech is forever changing, which means this cannot just be another act that we put on the shelf for another 30 years. It has to constantly be revised. We have to look at what the trends are, what is changing in the ecosystem, and we have to push for the act to be updated, to be changed in whatever way, and for implementation to happen.
Well, Grace Oluchi, co-founder and executive director at Climate Action Africa. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you so much for joining us on Tech Trends.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a wonderful day.
This is where we draw the curtain on this week's episode of the program. Thank you for tuning in. But as always, Tech Trends is here to share insights, trends, and developments happening in the tech space. And if you missed any part of the program, you can always catch up on the channel's TV YouTube accounts where we have all of our episodes. And I encourage you to watch, share, and like your favorite editions. For Tech Trends, I'm Olayemi Ojunuga. I'll see you next time.